Testing. 1, 2, 1, 2. Let me close this door, actually. Okay. Hello and welcome to the Black Ponderer. My name is Neil Trotter, and today it's a live stream. So Black Ponderer, in case you aren't aware, is a channel, YouTube channel where we talk about philosophy. Well, it's a philosophy YouTube channel, and we talk about philosophical texts. That's what we primarily do. We read texts, either like specifically philosophical texts, like Critique of Pure Reason, or like one of those famous ones like that, Phenomenology of Spirit, or, take your pick, or Republic by Plato. All these, we read those kinds of stuffy, dry-ass philosophical books, which I enjoy. I'm just kidding, but, stuffy books. We read those and when we talk about them, but then also we kind of talk about philosophical concepts as well. Sometimes we mostly do that on the live streams. We kind of just more loosey-goosey talk about philosophical concepts. But today, in this live stream, we're actually going to read an article. We got to do some text. We got to do some philosophical text. We got this article. Oops. Came across this article. Anthropology of Religion. I think it's actually a text. It's an actual book, but we're just gonna do chapter 1, and we're just gonna do like a close reading, and we're gonna talk about what the hell is religion, the definition of religion. We've kind of talked about. We touched upon that in several videos that I've done in the past. We even have a playlist, philosophy of religion. I have a playlist. You can check out several books I've done about philosophy of religion. And yeah, we're just going to get more of a deep dive into that with some close reading of this text. But, I just want to say that these live streams are more chillaxed. We're just hanging out. We're just, imagine you're at the club or a bar or like, a lounge, nightclub. But we're in the back. We're in the back chilling. We're not on the dance floor or in the front. We're in the back. We're just having a conversation. And we're talking, so we're gonna do a little loosey-goosey, and it's okay if you want to talk on the chat and say some comments about anything we're discussing here, or not. You can just chill and have your little drink or whatever. We are relaxing here. Now, with that said, it's okay to go on side tangents and just kind of veer off in other directions, because we're not lecturing here. We're not I'm not talking at you, I'm talking with you. So feel free to just throw out just random tangents here and there. It's cool. We're hanging out. But, I usually do a good job at like veering us back to the discussion. So don't worry about it. So feel free to talk or not. I think they call that, what is it called? Lurk. It's called lurking. Sometimes we do a lurking. Oh, hello, the vibe. Are we talking about religion because we're in the month of Aquarius? No. Is that astrology? I don't know astrology. I don't know. That's not the reason. I don't know about astrology, but sure, we could do that. I think I need to. Okay, that's about as low as it gets from my end. Okay, so let me first bring up the description of the video. Hold on a minute. Edit. Yeah, astrology. I know I'm like a Sagittarius. That's my sign. What does that mean? I don't know. I'm not into. So we're reading a chapter from this book It's called Anthropology of Religion. It's called Anthropology of Religion, and I think this is chapter 1, I think, or the first chapter. It's called What is Religion? It's by James Bielo or Bielo. I'm sorry. I apologize for butchering that, but I'm trying to give the author credit here. And what we're going to talk about is, how do you define religion? What does religion mean to you? What is your relationship between religion and society? How has religion changed over history? All this and more as we do a close reading of a text excerpt from this live stream. Join us. Okay, so that was the description. So let's begin. So I cancel that, put this back here, make that big. Okay. See, did I highlight anything here? So first of all, we gotta look at the term like anthropology of religion. What is anthropology of religion? So what is this? The study of how religion develops between human societies, as opposed to just the study of religion in isolation. So we're not just talking about religion in and of itself. We're talking about the anthropology of religion, right? And what is anthropology? You know, the study of human beings throughout history, the development of human, human civilization, human society, and human relations, human interactions, throughout time. So we're talking about that so we're using that framework and we're looking at religion. So, okay, so we're not just talking about religion, we're talking about how religion is influenced with human interaction. So how have humans interfaced with religion? You might say like, well, isn't that the same thing? No, because, you could get, for example, you talk about Christianity, and you could get all into like, well, there's this idea that God is 3 persons in one, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So what does that mean, right? You get into this theological discussion, which you don't even have to talk about, well, what does that mean in relationship to human beings and how they've interpreted that concept and how has that influenced society, right? You could just talk about just the triune nature of God, separate from how it relates to human development, right? So we're incorporating the human development into it too. All right, so that's important for us to take into consideration as we talk about this, have this discussion. Okay, so studying religion through an anthropological lens, that's what we're doing here. So I'm just reading my highlights here. A definitive, succinct answer would be unhelpful and misleading. So the question, what is religion? Oh, there it is. What is religion? Well, a definitive, succinct answer would be unhelpful and misleading. So what's going on here? That's what the author says. The goal of this chapter is to help you critically reflect on the category religion. Oh, sorry. Everything's good. Everything's good. I forgot I have a light on a timer. My bad. I forgot. All right. Let me put on my lights. My other lights. All right. We back. Be back. Put on the bright light. That's too bad because that light was pretty good, but whatever. So the goal of this chapter is to help you critically reflect on a category of religion, what its nature might be, why different scholars at different times have advocated different ideas about this, and what value, if any, the category offers. So thinking of how religion is a category, the attributes that all religions share, right? So yeah, we're thinking about it categorically, right? We're not necessarily trying to give a succinct definition. We're more just focused on, okay, what do all religions share? Like when we call something a religion, what attributes are associated with that, right? Which might not be a succinct definition. It might be just a list of attributes, which might be very long, right? So we're giving a more holistic and more in-depth analysis of the term religion, right? So that's what we want to talk about here. Okay. We begin with definitions because how a scholar defines religion reveals important insights about their basic assumptions and commitments in the study of religion. In short, definitions are clues to a theoretical orientation. Okay, so this is important. So so this kind of goes to the whole thing that I'm sometimes criticized about with the name of my YouTube channel, the Black Ponderer, and why some people can't get over that, because why I call myself this YouTube channel, the Black Ponderer, is because I'm trying to highlight that there is assumptions and commitments that are usually taken into consideration when studying philosophy, right? Right, there are these assumptions, right, that people aren't aware of. These biases, say, this kind of favoritism toward Western philosophies, Westernized philosophies per se, and that kind of thing. And so, when I say Black Ponder, I'm highlighting that. I'm like, well, I'm giving you a different take. I'm giving you a different set of biases when I'm talking about philosophy, kind of like a more Black American take, which takes into consideration several factors. And so when we're talking about religion and defining religion, we also have to take that into consideration about, I just use that as an example of with religion, you are also having some assumptions, you're having some biases, and as you look at the study of religion, what are the biases, what are the assumptions that are made, and that's what we have to really think about when we think about definitions. So it's not just like the definition in and of itself, right? It's about how did that definition arise? Where did that definition come from? How was that definition developed, right? And a lot of it had to do with the assumptions that these scholars made, right? So that's, putting these things into perspective is important. And then I'll read, theoretical orientation is instrumental in deciding what to study. What research questions matter most? What counts as data? How to collect data? How to analyze data? And how to present what was studied. Different anthropologists at different points in the discipline's history have favored certain orientations over others. Yeah. That's what we're talking about here. So my question here is, okay, so let me break that down for a minute. So research, how the research was conducted, what was the data that was counted, or what was the data that wasn't counted, right? What wasn't counted, and then how was the data even collected? I mean, these are important things to consider. The analysis of the data, right? How was it analyzed? There's approaches to the methodology that we have to take in consideration, right? Then I asked this question in the margins: is impartiality possible? There's this idea you got to be unbiased when you do academic research, but is that possible? I would argue no, right? Should impartiality even be a goal, right? You got to be impartial to a certain extent, right? But everybody has biases. Now, of course, you want to recognize those biases, and that's what you need to do. You have to recognize the biases. Will you ever get rid of them? No, because human beings we're creatures of bias. We have partialities to us. That's what makes us human. We're not robots, right? But even robots have biases, right? Because they're created by humans, right? So we're not. Even machines have biases. There's that whole question with AI, and how AI is just spitting out a certain kind of data at you because it's based off of its programming, right? And the programming was made by people who have biases, so they're getting a targeted amount of information and they're discarding other information. Why? For many different reasons, right? There's some partiality going on there, right? Okay, so I would not say like impartiality probably isn't a thing that you can do, but what you can do is you can recognize like, oh, okay, so there is biases here, and let's not pretend that there isn't. Right? So when we read definitions, specifically definitions about religion, we're seeing there's biases here, and let's not pretend that this is just a neutral definition, because it's not. That's what the article is saying here. So comparing definitions is a good way to begin to grasp the differences and why they matter. So yeah, when you look at different definitions and you start saying, oh, okay, they define it this way, they define it that way, why? And again, I just bring it on back to the Black Ponderer, right? I talk about philosophy in a specific way that represents my biases. And, I tell you, I discuss like why I have those biases. You're getting it from an African American lens, right, of philosophy, and I think that's an important lens. It shouldn't be the only lens, right? But all too often we have just taken a specific kind of perspective, and then we pretend like that is an impartial, unbiased perspective when it's not. Right? And there's a lot of things that are left out. And so when we look at different interpretations of something and how things are defined, we have to consider like, okay, where is this person coming from? Where is this organization coming from? Where is this institution coming from? And then we and that's how we really think about how we should think about definitions, is what the article is saying. And then, so let's see. One, what does it talk about here? So anthropological approach to religion. So one, grounded in empirical research, so experience, right? Grounded in experiences. Two, be comparative, okay. Three, not geared toward creating hierarchies or separating good from bad. And then four, enhance broader anthropological aims. Okay. So that was quite a bit there, and then I'll break that down. But the vibe says, if struggling with definition, what do you make of making interpretation bias on etymology? Oh, I'm sorry, interpretation base on etymology. Again, you just when you look at etymological breakdowns, right? You have to take into consideration, okay, who's creating these breakdowns, right? So you have academics who study etymology, right, and they're giving you these definitions. So you have to just take in consideration, okay, what is this institution that's giving me these breakdowns, these definitions, like, and then, so I told you like 4 things to consider. Like, is it grounded off empirical research, right? Has it been compared? Is it comparative, right? Is it geared toward hierarchies of separating good from bad? And that's not necessarily like moral, but it can be. It could just be like, well, this definition is not good because of, maybe the culture is not like civilized or something, and that's why it's not good. Like, as opposed to like, well, is that the best way of defining things? Or maybe you should be like, well, whatever you think about this culture, it has this definition, and then there's this other culture that has this other definition. So let's kind of take them both in consideration and then form a definition based off of that, right? Yeah, and we're talking about like the meaning of words, like etymology. This is, we're getting into that kind of thing, right? where it's like, okay, this word came from this culture, but it also came from this culture, and this culture over time changed it to this meaning, but then this meaning got transported over here, and that's part of the whole etymology of a word, right? So yeah, that's a good point, bringing that up. And then enhance broader anthropological aims, and I would say the same thing with etymological aims. I don't know, I'm having issues pronouncing that, but I've always had issues pronouncing that word for some reason. I don't know. That's part of my brain, how it works. But same thing with how words are defined or the meaning behind words. It's about also expanding the definition of the word, meaning like, okay, now that not limiting the definition of the word to this one specific area in history, and not including all these other areas in history, right? Is including it all. So then you enhance the whole definition of the word. You get more accurate understanding of the meaning of the word by including all these various interpretations, right? And it's not, necessarily about which one is right, which one is wrong. It's about it's about understanding how these words have been interpreted over time, right? And then you have a comprehensive understanding of the meaning of the word, right? As opposed to this limited understanding, because you're just focusing on one aspect of its historical context, right? Anyway, so yeah, that's a good point. Let's see. So I underline here, intellectually generous is a definition. It asks what is valuable about any given approach to the study of religion. And then self-reflection. We are poised to better understand our own commitments. Okay. So, yeah. What makes one focus of how to study something more preferable than another approach, right? And why am I aligned with this specific way of studying, right? So I put in my notes here. Definitions should help us be more intellectually generous and self-reflective rather than give us exact answers, right? So, this is interesting because it kind of talks, it's interesting because it's a little misleading, but it's not clickbaity, right? So, what is religion? Is it really about what really is religion? No, what we're really doing here is we are using that question to kind of get a better understanding of the question, right? Which is important because a lot of things don't have straightforward answers, but the best you can do is have a better understanding of the question, which gives you a lot of information. Now we're getting philosophical here. That's pretty cool. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's go back to my YouTube channel title, The Black Ponderer. We always got to go there. So I give it an interpretation, and part of the theme of a philosophical text. And I'm coming at it from a black perspective, meaning an African American's perspective. So it's a perspective of somebody that grew up in America, in the United States of America as a black man. So I have all these biases based off of my experience and based off of my empirical research, right? Which can be very different from somebody who's coming from another background, right? And so what you have to do is you have to, what's really cool about definitions, if you really think of it like this, is okay, he's coming at the interpretation from this angle. It's not maybe I don't jive with that interpretation, or maybe I can see holes in that, but I see where he's coming from, right? And I see why he's arising at those conclusions. Those conclusions aren't far off base because of where he's coming from his experiential research, right? His empirical research, like the things he lived through and experienced, right? And so I need to take that in consideration as I interpret it myself. Now, you don't have to do that, but what's going to happen is you're going to have a better understanding of the idea. Not to say throw out your interpretation, which might be different based off of your empirical research, but you should definitely take other perspectives into consideration. So it's forcing you to take other interpretations into consideration that, interpretations that do their due diligence. But just because they come from a different perspective doesn't mean they're necessarily wrong, right? And then what I brought up before was like number 2, comparative. Then compare and be self-reflective. Like, okay, I arrived at this conclusion. Why? Why did I interpret it in this way? Like, why do I define it in this way? And why does this person define it in that way? Rather than saying, oh, this person is wrong, I'm right. It's like, don't think of it so much like that. Think of it like, okay, where is this person coming from? Right? Because then you can actually determine how correct somebody is, not necessarily just because they're, you can determine like the validity of something by understanding where the person is coming from, right? What is their angle? Right? That's a better way to like understand the validity of a definition or not, right? Or an interpretation is what we're saying. And then here's a quote. It is the fantastic realization of the human essence because the human essence has no true reality. What does that mean? Religion is the opium of the people. I put a question mark there. The human essence has no true reality? What does that mean? I think the article gets into that later. Let's see. We'll return to that one. So now the author talks about different definitions of religion that has been brought by several academics and scholars. He starts off first with Marx. Marx understood religion as a form of false consciousness, a reverse world consciousness that distracts people from this worldly problem, poverty, for example. Marx's broader framework of cultural and economic critique, industrial capitalism, brutalizes workers, and workers do not revolt because they remain blind to the conditions of their domination. Marx wanted to pull the curtain back to reveal those brutal conditions. Naming religion as part of modern society's false consciousness was part of this broader critique. So religion was part of the whole industrial capitalist machine. That's where Marx is coming from. So that's where his bias was coming from. Marx had a whole project of like critiquing capitalism, and so like religion was part of that whole project of critiquing capitalism. So we need to take that into consideration. Now some people might be dismissive about that and say like, well, he's not actually defining religion because he's all looking through everything through a social economic lens, and he's not like taking all these factors in consideration. But rather, what you should be saying to what I would argue is like, well, no, Marx is like using that framework to analyze religion, and which is a very deep and valid perspective to look at, because religion exists in social economic ways like all the time, right? And Marx did a deep dive into that. But that was like his focus. His focus was that. He was like not so much about the theological, like my understanding, he was an atheist, right? He looked at it from just a social economic perspective, which is a very valid, and important aspect to look at, right? Okay, and then the author goes to Freud. Like Marx, Freud's approach was part of a larger project, so psychoanalysis was Freud's thing, as an attempt to rid people of the psychological baggage that restricted their development into healthy, mature adulthood. Naming religion as a dysfunctional hurdle to get over was part of this broader critique. So again, religion as a negative psychological attribute. So it's just interesting to look at these very popular, philosophers. Freud he definitely contributed a lot to philosophy. Is he a philosopher? Yeah, he's more, he's a psychologist, but he has a lot of philosophical things to say. I guess I guess I would say I wouldn't say he was a philosopher, but he definitely had a lot of philosophical ideas that contributed to the world of philosophy for sure. But he was more of a psychologist first and foremost. But he, he's looking at religion in a psychoanalytical point of view, right? And so what's important is not to be dismissive about that, and to just say like, okay, this is how Freud is looking at it, which is an important thing that we should consider. And let's consider that in the overall understanding of philosophy. And the vibe says, modern society, false consciousness. That's interesting. Yeah. So that's what Marx, he uses that term, false consciousness, to classify religion is just like a way for people to escape the horror that is capitalism. Like, capitalism is like this horrible thing that really is destructive and it hurts people, but people still just go along with it because religion is a huge part of that, right? Religion kind of dumbs down or puts people in these lulls where they're like able to accept this horror, right? So it's kind of this false consciousness that Marx attributes, and honestly, there's some truth in that. Let's pretend that there's not truth in that. There definitely is some truth in that. And then is he quoting? He's quoting Max Weber, an extremely influential German sociologist. Weber says, the essence of religion is not even our concern. The external courses of religious behaviors are so diverse that an understanding of this behavior can only be achieved from the viewpoint of the subjective experiences, ideas, and purposes of the individuals concerned. So he's saying, look, the definition of religion, irrelevant. He's more interested in how does a religion affect each person individually? That's what's more important, right, to know. So religion is a subjective experience, and so it's going to be different for each person. So you can't really define it generally. Right? The only way you can define it generally is to say religion is a subjective experience, right? Which is interesting. And so Weber prioritizes subjective experiences, ideas, and purposes, or simply the meaning of religion to religious adherents themselves. This suggests that scholars can and should seek to understand the inner life of religious people. So I put in my notes what religion means to people rather than religion by itself, right? So this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the definition. We're talking about, how is the definition developed or arrived at, right? Right. Now I highlight, articulate a sensibility, an approach, a way of studying religion. Okay, so that's what these definitions do. An approach, a sensibility, a way to study religion, right? Socioeconomically or subjectively or psychoanalytically. So it's all these frameworks, right? They interpret religion as obscuring something more fundamental to human reality. Okay, that's how they see it. Identify the more fundamental force, right? As we compare definitions, ask what kind of posture toward religion is being suggested. So for these three people, religion was just a way to obscure ultimate reality, right? It was just a way to distract people from the real thing that was happening, which many people to this day see religion that way. It's just it's escapism, right? It's just a way to escape the trueness of the world, and so that's one way of looking at it. And that's not a bad, necessary. We're trying to escape terms good and bad. That's a way of approaching religion, to studying religion, which is valid. Might not be what you jive with, but lots of people do. So it's important to take it into consideration and include it in the definition of religion, right? And then he talks about these armchair anthropologists, Tyler and Fraser. He calls armchair anthropologists because their writings relied on other reports, not their own ethnographic fieldwork. Okay, so and then he brings up these anthropologists that just relied on like other people's texts. They actually didn't go out to the cultures, to the people, and like actually hung out with them. And so that's this old school anthropological definition of religion. Okay, and then the author brings up this term animism, which I've heard before. It was a term Tyler made popular, meaning the attribution of spiritual will or essence to non-human entities, e.g. animals or features of the natural world. So, the idea that everything kind of has a will, or even like maybe not necessarily a soul, but like a life force, right? Like a rock has everything. Like this bowl has a life force. Got my crumbs, my chip crumbs in there. They have life forces, right? So, now we bring this up because that's a belief system that lots of people adhere to, right? All human societies were biologically similar but existed in different stages of hierarchical progression. So Tyler's angle in regards to religion. So, yeah. So Tyler brought up this term animism, animism, but he saw it as that's kind of a lower class of religion. Like that's like pre-religion, right? And then you get like higher up, and then you start realizing, oh no, actually these things don't have life forces; they're just inanimate objects. So it's a higher level. But okay, this is an angle that he's already enforcing that perspective onto the study, because he already has this kind of worldview of, well, there's different echelons of religious religiosity, right? Or religious practice, which we need to consider. So the author uses this kind of theoretical agenda. Right? That's what he says. All right. Okay, and then he brings up some other 20th century international academic celebrity, William James. He wanted to broaden the scope of what being religious meant beyond institutional and organizational confines, broaden the scope of claims to truth beyond scientific proofs. Pragmatism, truth should be gauged by usefulness. That's what pragmatism is. So truth is about how useful is it. For James, religious experience was true and real because it provoked real people to do real things in the real world, even if those experiences could not be measured via natural science. So he had a focus on experience. So that's his angle. He focuses on the experiential rather than the ideal. Right? He's like, look, if people find it useful, then it's real. Things that aren't useful, maybe not so much, right? So that's kind of you would have to think that through. Like, well, what about things that aren't useful? Are they not real? But perhaps pragmatism's, various interpretations of pragmatism will say like, well, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying things are real because they're useful, not necessarily because science can prove them, right? I actually kind of feel that way about free will, actually. So, personally, I guess I have a pragmatist interpretation of free will, where people debate like, do people have free will or do they not? And to me, it's like, well, we feel like we have free will, and it influences us. The feeling that we have free will is so embedded in our experience. It basically is real. Like whether like it's scientifically, quantum mechanics shows that it's not real or not. Like, but it's so fundamental to our experience. It must, there's a realness to it. So that's cool to know. Pragmatism, but what the authors wants to highlight here is like, well, that's where James, his focus is in experience. So you got Marx, who's more about social economics, Freud about psychoanalysis, and then we had others, and then we got James, who's like, no, it's all about the experiential, right? So that's his focus. And so when you focus on something, you're like also leaving out certain things, right? And that's just an important thing to take into consideration. The bowl is holding your life force. There you go. There you go. Let's see. Rather than keying on social constructs or functions, James spotlighted the visceral, sensual, emotional, and psychological realness of religious experience for individuals. Hey, Jeremy, how's it going? And then, beliefs and practices which unite one single moral community called a church, all those who adhere to them. And so this is somebody from, this is Emil Durkheim, Emil Durkheim, another academic. He says this, so let me repeat. He says, beliefs and practices which unite one single moral community called a church, all those who adhere to them, focus on practices, emphasizes human collectivity. He elevates practices in particular group rituals as more integral than beliefs for sustaining the social project or moral community. So he's talking more about like, look, it's all about rituals. That's a religion. Like, are they doing a ritual? Are they doing like religious practices? Then it's a religion. Religion is defined by the practices. If people go to like a building or an institution or an establishment and they're doing like Holy Communion or like prayer or like the benediction or like all these rituals, the lighting of candles, then that's religion. So it's about like this practice. So that's his focus. But what about people who are like, who are just like, hey, religion is about belief. That's all it's about. Doesn't matter about practice, right? So he would differ from that. But now he's leaving stuff out and he's focusing on other things. So, we just want to highlight this. Every person who has defined religion, we have to understand that they are focusing specifically on a certain thing, which, inherently, leaves out other aspects, right? So definitions aren't complete, is what we want to say here. For Durkheim, explain how human societies maintain cohesion, mutuality, and belonging, i.e., moral community. In functionalist terms, religion was simply a very powerful institution to achieve this basic social mandate. Religion is the instrument of human collectivity, right? So I like that term, functionalist. So Durkheim had a very functionalist focus. He's like, look, what religion is just a way for people to be collective. Right? It's for people to form a tribe, through ritual, through communal practices. That's religion. But what about like solo people, people who practice religion in isolation, like, which is the thing, right? So he leaves that out, right? I think what's conflicting with religion is that politics don't represent morality. Well, I mean, one has to argue like, I mean, does religion represent morality? I mean, I would argue no, right? But I think what's conflicting with religion is that, right? I mean, are religious people moral people? For the most part, no, right? As as history has shown us repeatedly, not necessarily. I mean, there are lots of religious people who do righteous things, but a lot of them don't. In old times, religions and politics were connected, and sometimes people in power used religion to fuel power. Well, I mean, that's definitely how it is today. I mean, in the United States of America, like, there is no separation of church and state, right? There are definitely laws that are based off of religious doctrine, or religious dogma, I should say, but doctrine too. Like, I'll always say, like, abortion is legal in many states in America because of some religious dogma, right? There's just literally no separation of church and state here, or, go on and on and on about other types of things. Now, is it like moral or ethical? Like, that's beside the point with a lot of these people, right? So, and of course there's like theocracies, right? In the Middle East, for instance, where the rulers are basically priests or like, religious leaders, right? And like literally like the laws are directly from religious texts, like the Quran and things like that. For the most part, we have to leave morality to religion ultimately. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think we need to leave morality to religion. I think you could definitely separate the two. I think we kind of have to nowadays, because religion nowadays is so corrupt and like, and just wrong. Like, a lot of, if you actually read the Bible, for instance, a lot of it just flat out says immoral shit, right? Like, if women cheat on, if a woman is unfaithful to a man, you're allowed to stone the woman to death. That's highly immoral in my opinion. Now, people will debate like, well, that's old school. That's just how you got to be faithful. It's like, yeah, that's some bullshit. So, I think it is. I think we should separate morality from religion. I think that would be very helpful in our society today. The fact that we don't is a huge problem in the society, in my opinion. Let's see. The existence of non-human agencies, spirits. Okay, now we're talking about another thinker, Tyler. Let me see. Do I have his full name? We'll just say Tyler. The existence of non-human agencies, spirits, integral to religion, invoking the category of the supernatural, and he conceives these agencies to be forcefully involved in human affairs involving a this world or other world relationship. So this person's focus is like spirits, like, metaphysics, right? Like, other, a world outside of the physical, where there's spirits and divine entities, and that's what constitutes religion. So that's a focus. So the supernatural, right? That's what defines. So that's their angle, right? Even the holy text, so many powerful men had their vices, and people still look up to them. It's crazy, right? It's crazy. It's true. It's true. But a lot of people don't even read the holy text, right? So a lot of most religious people don't even read the holy text, so they just, they just follow what they're told by whoever. But not to knock people, because there's a lot of people who do read them and say, okay, that's fine, I accept that. It's like, no, maybe you should think about that a little bit more critically. So it's true. Okay, so, and then I highlighted a set of rituals rationalized by myth, which mobilizes supernatural powers for the purpose of achieving or preventing transformations or of state in man and nature. So, the supernatural. So, that's maybe somebody just cares about that. And they're like, well, how does the supernatural, like, what about, like, the non-super, like, the physical? How does religion affect the physical, the real world, like, the actual physical world? Like, how does religion relate to that? Where there's some scholars will just hyper focus on, like, the metaphysical and the supernatural and the spirit world, right? So you're leaving out stuff there too. What do you think? Another word that's hard to pronounce. Asceticism. Did I pronounce that correctly? I don't know. I think that means like abstaining from like everything, right? Like living a very minimal lifestyle. Restraining what you eat and living very poorly in poverty and stuff like that. Is that what you're talking about? I'm not really about that. I'm all about balance. Like, just be balanced. I'm not about that. I think society is prone to luxury. We do fixate on the excess. Like I need my Rolex and my Porsche and my high definition camera. You just gotta balance. For example, I use this camera, which is like a camera I bought in 2012. It's fine. It's HD. This is when like HD first came out commercially. It was made available commercially. This is when like HD cameras first came out, and they were like reasonably expensive for the average person, or reasonably priced for the average person. I mean, now an aesthetic person would be like, no cameras at all. Like, I'm just gonna write on a piece of paper and I'm just gonna mail it to people. You gotta have a balance. That's all I'm saying. You remove excess in your heart and soul and achieve greater peace and balance. But isn't it like extreme, right? Let me look at this. Yeah, it's like extreme. Like, yeah. Like, the famous picture is the Buddha who, the story of the Buddha who like went down that road of asceticism. Went down that road and realized like that's not the way. He realized that he would eat like one grain of rice a day or something like that. He realized like, and he would just meditate all day and like not sustain his body, and he realized, oh, okay, this is not working. And so he realized like, oh, I need balance. Like I need to like eat normally. Right? Whereas it's a severe self-discipline and avoidance of all forms of indulgence, typically for religious reasons. Abstinence from worldly pleasures, often for the purpose of pursuing spiritual goals. Like, I don't think you should avoid worldly pleasures. You should just like not, overindulge. I see like the first question here. Like when I type in Google, did Jesus practice asceticism? And no, I mean, he lived very cheaply, right? He was like, I would say he was a minimalist, right? He was a minimalist, but he did allow like women to wash his feet. Like he did, he did like drink alcohol. I mean, he did. He appreciated life as well. Addiction is real in some indulgences. Yeah, addiction is like a disease, right? It's an illness, right? And you need to you seek medical help for that, right? Okay, let's see. We're bringing up somebody else. Wallace. Religion was made of a combination between select ritual practices and the effects of those practices on social and natural conditions. The practice as it relates to social conditions and how the practice explains natural conditions. Okay, so now we're making a correlation between human social conditions and like ritual practices. Okay, so now we're starting to look at it anthropologically, right? And then we have Clifford Geertz, a central figure in the history of anthropology. So he developed interpretive anthropology, prioritizes humans as meaning makers and consumers of public symbols. The anthropologist's job is to decode socially shared meanings communicated through symbolic systems. Okay, and so Geertz focused on the symbolism of religion, and he was about like, look, what makes human beings human is we are always making meanings out of stuff. Like everything means something. That's what we humans do, and the one of the ways you can see that very obviously through symbolism, right? So the job of the anthropologist is to see how those meanings are interpreted and how they affect human society. So his focus was on not only just symbolism but like meaning making, right? Why, that's pretty fascinating. Symbols, any object, act, event, quality, or relation which serves as a vehicle for a conception integrated as a system. Mm-hmm. So that's how he defined religion. Let's see. And then Jeremy says, that's true. Throughout human history, we humans created archetypes to find meanings. Yeah. And then we got Morton Claus. Okay, another anthropologist. He viewed most key concepts in the anthropology of religion as ethnocentric because they made certain religious traditions central while marginalizing others. Now we're getting to like the real meat and potatoes. This is like my area as the Black Ponderer. It's like, taking into consideration like, okay, we're prioritizing Christianity, but we're not like focusing on like Jainism or something like that. But or rather like we're looking at certain kinds of Christianity. But what about like the Black Church, or like womanism, which is like a kind of like Black feminist Christianity, which like doesn't get any attention barely, but is critical to like the development of religion throughout the ages. Right? So that's important to take into consideration too. For what I've learned, myths are created to explore truths about the world. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true. I think they're also very fun, and they're also created for entertainment factors too, which is interesting. So now we go to Scott Atran. Okay, Atran approaches religion from the standpoint of biological evolution. In this theoretical orientation, religion is a cognitive byproduct of the human evolutionary process It has stuck around through millions of years because it fosters successful adaptation. Religion, it exists as a mental phenomenon. So what he's saying is like, look, man, religion is here because it's like, it helps human beings like reproduce. Right? You know, that's, if it wasn't, we've had religion for so long because it actually helps us evolutionarily. Right? It's like you know, it's a trait that helps us survive our environment. Right? So he's just looking at it from a clearly biological evolutionary standpoint. That's his theoretical orientation or bias. Right? So you can look at it purely that way too. So here I highlight the usual suspects: belief, order, experience, the sacred ritual practice, and symbolic meaning. So these are the focuses of these. And then definitions are clues to broader theoretical and or normative commitments. Okay. So what are definitions? They're clues for broader theoretical or normative commitments. So, you know, that's just a fancy way to say biases. Which is, I mean, you know, I guess it's a more specific way of saying that, which is important. When you read a definition, you're like, okay, this is where this is coming from, this perspective. And we're you know, not so much like definitions in the dictionary, but even those kind of have that too. But you know, more so like academic definitions of like huge concepts like religion or spirituality, or you know, even stuff like defining mathematics or science, you know, or music, you know, things like that. Let's see. In my unpopular opinion, religion is created to give direction to people without a will or love of life. Even Nietzsche can concur. Yeah, Nietzsche was definitely saying a lot of that. That's for sure. So, Jeremy, you're an atheist? You don't have to share if you don't want to. I'm curious. This link between definition and theory will not always be crystal clear. There will be a link, and it is your job as a critical reader to find it. It's my job as a critical reader to find it. And, I like that. It's a call to action. What if we presume that our most important terms are those that generate the most disagreement? We benefit from doing the work of analyzing why definitions are composed as they are. So rather than focusing on which definition is right, the focus is how was the definition arrived at. That's how we should be thinking about it. They tell us what is being prioritized in the study of religion. You know, so what's being prioritized? Okay, cool. Oh, okay. I see that was retracted, so I'll let you give a more clear definition. Okay, critiques of religion is the section we're at now. What contributions those criticisms make to ongoing comparative research? So, you know, we gave all these analytical considerations, like what's the point in all of this, right? How critiquing religion offers more insight to the theoretical orientation of religious study. Okay, so questioning religion. So we brought up Fraser. I don't recall actually bringing him up, although I might have. I might have not have read his highlight. He was a cultural evolutionist. Okay, so you know we go back to that concept of Culture evolves by kind of natural selection, right? Like, we arise from like barbarians or like, uncivilized to civilized, like that kind of bullshit. You know, it's too bad. Like, we actually believe that, but then, we still have cops shooting unarmed innocent people. We still like take away rights from people. We still like treat women as like baby making machine. Like, is this civilized? No. But I digress. So are we really developing as I would argue not so much. I guess it depends on like the gauge you're using. Nietzsche is a mad scientist. I love his logics and view of, by the way. Yeah, Nietzsche's cool. Nietzsche's cool. Yeah, he's awesome. Of course, there's some things I, don't agree with him about, but there are lots of things I do agree with him about. So, which is fine. I'm sure Nietzsche would be the same about me. Be like, yeah, he's right about some things, but a lot of what he's saying, I don't. I'm sure he would say the same shit about me. So, so it's all good. So ethnocentrism, okay, that's a word, is a theoretical orientation. Ethnocentrism. So religion is considered inherently ethnocentric because it emerges from a system that values Western modernity above any alternative way of life. So this is what's being said here. And we're talking about, now we're getting into Talal Assad. Okay. And Assad is very popular social, critical theorist, for sure. Okay, so I do think religions in some ways contribute to what we think about human rights. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They contribute, and so they contribute in many, many ways, right? In fact, honestly, like, religion is isn't religion solely responsible for how we think about rights? Unfortunately, right? Which is, maybe we should secularize that. Yeah, no, absolutely. We haven't evolved. We became law abiding, right? Unless you're like super rich, right? And if you're like, the elite class, you don't follow any of laws, right? Some people argue like, well, they make up the laws. No, they don't. Like, they just choose not to follow them, and they're okay because they got so much power. Right? But yeah, so all of us who are forced to abide by the law, yeah, we accept it. Like, welfare wouldn't exist without etho of treating the poor. Oh, the ethics of treating the poor well. Yeah. I guess that's what do they call that? That's like, yeah. I'm trying to be thoughtful here because I'll never poo-poo welfare. Welfare is, well, what we should have is, people, all of our, I'll go on the tangent of like, all of our basic necessities should be free, right? Housing, food, education, it should be free. So, there's that, right? But I guess you can call me a socialist or whatever, or communist. I don't give a shit. That's what I feel. That's what I think. But yeah, we have welfare, and I'll never poo-poo on welfare because my mama was on welfare back in the day, and that helped. And she worked a full-time job while on welfare. So, with that said, the system of welfare is. It is true, like it is based off of a religious idea of, kind of like the notion that you can kind of buy your way into heaven by like having a lot of money and like you giving money to somebody lower than you kind of asserts your like higher superiority. That kind of I forgot the term for that, but there, that's a classic historical like Christian, ideology, right? And it leads to like altruism, right? Which depending on how you use that term, some people, altruism in like the political sense, right? Where this idea that we could just like solve all problems with money, but charity is this kind of like reaffirming of these religious beliefs. And whereas, you're giving money to people, but that's not actually solving the problem. What you should be doing is like allowing all resources to be free, right? Right. But yeah. So, that's a deep thing. What is the socialist definition of religion, Neil? I don't know if there is one. Right? Some people say that Jesus was a socialist. I guess, sure. It's fun. It's just crazy because we use these terms, and these terms are important to use. It's important to use these terms, but for me, it's like, well, am I kind and am I compassionate? Do I care about other people? Like, I mean, these are the terms we should be using, right? Rather than like socialist, capitalist, whatever. It confuses people. I think we get so caught up in like, I guess you can say like identity politics. I actually don't like that term because I think that term also confuses people too. It's like because sometimes we do need to focus on identity, and sometimes we don't. Right? But it just depends. But yeah, sometimes we can get so fixated on that. The terms is like, I just care about being kind to people and compassionate and like helpful. And then, by the way, I come from a Catholic upbringing. But yeah, but what are you now? Like, but you don't have to answer that. Like, are you Catholic currently, or are you not Catholic anymore? But it's fine. You don't have to if you don't want to. Based on the tools you have given me, I am predicting you have read the Pedagogy of the Oppressed. I have not read that book, but it's probably on my queue way down there. Assad historicized the concept of religion and its role in anthropology. He traced the category's modern usage to post-Reformation Europe, where defining religion was a specifically Christian project geared toward demarcating religion from other social domains, e.g. politics. Assad argued that there cannot be a universal definition of religion because all such definitions ultimately reflect the historical and ideological context of their production more than they do any objective phenomenon. So Assad is like, look, religion is like based off of historical context. That's his angle. So there is no universal definition. It depends on the historical context. And then he continues to say, like, look, even like us trying to define religion is just a product of like westernization, like Western civilization. Like it's something like that didn't used to exist. People didn't used to try and define religion because religion was undefinable, like dependent on the historical context, right? So that's interesting. Hello. No, I didn't know you were doing. Yep, you missed it. This was like the best live stream I've ever done ever, and you missed out. Oh well, sucks to be you. No, I'm just playing. Yeah, no. Well, you're here now. Thanks for being here. Hello, Nadia. Let's see. Exemplify the inherent problems of positing a universal definition. And here is more concerned with how the definition is formed rather than the accuracy of the definition. Let's see. Okay. Okay, cool. Watch it back later. The role of authority in religious life. Yep. So religion can tell us more about dynamics of social power than the nature of spiritual beings. Right? So, what does it mean that God is three-person in one? The Son, the Father, and the Holy Spirit. Like, you can go all into that theological discussion. But the author is arguing, like, if you really want to talk about the definition of religion, you're gonna learn a lot more about like the dynamics of social power, of human interrelation to power, than you will about the nature of God. Right? That's what he's saying here. So, and he goes back to Geertz. Ignores the social conditions and processes that produce, circulate, and endow those products with authority. These conditions and the processes are thoroughly relations of unequal power. Only certain people have the ability to produce, circulate, and endow. Consider the difference between analyzing the meaning of symbols and analyzing the institutional and ideological pathways by which those symbols get legitimized. So we're not like just when we look at the cross. Am I wearing it? No, I'm not. The crucifix. Are we talking about like what does the crucifix mean, or are we talking more about like what has the sign of the cross done to social institutions and human relations to power? That I mean, what are you really? What information are you really gaining? And I think I would agree. Like, you're talking when you talk about the cross. Are you and you start talking about the cross? Is it more like are you getting more information about the nature of sacrifice and the nature of God and the all lovingness, or are you more getting information about what human beings value and how human beings have interacted with power and like what value, how are human beings valued based off of what they believe in, right? Like these are the things that are really being brought up when we talk about these symbols. That's what's being said there. Here, the category of religion functions as a political device, a way of categorizing people that was familiar and acceptable to the Western thinking. Religion is a political device, right? Is it not? And now the author brings up a Dutch anthropologist, Peter van der Veer. For Veer, for van der Veer, this political use of religion fostered the colonial imperative to manage the populace. The manifest destiny. That's right. If definitions are like what a good food is to a child, shouldn't we make sure we're serving the right definitions? Well, I mean, I guess the question more is, when we when we serve definitions, it's not. So again, like what the author brought up is not about what's right and what's wrong. Like when we're talking about that, like that's not what's important. What's important is acknowledging where the definitions are coming from. So when we bring up a definition, what we should be talking about is like, how did this definition arise? Like, where did this definition come from? What was the methodology that brought about this definition? Rather than like, well, this is a bad definition, this is a good definition, right? So that's the point the author is making here. Neil, do you wear the cross often around your neck? Why do people wear crosses? Is it a symbol of devotion for you? Yeah, I'm not wearing it now. I wear a crucifix because my grandma gave it to me when I moved from California to Tennessee, and now my grandma passed away, so it means a lot to me. A lot of people. That's why a lot of people wear crosses. It's because they're like family heirlooms. I think a lot of people wear crosses because they're family heirlooms. They mean a lot to me. But I also, so I wear it for that reason. But also, the cross does mean, the crucifix is a important symbol, I would say, because a lot of people will argue like, so I'm a religious person, like I'm a Christian, and so people will say like, well, isn't that weird that the symbol for Christianity is like a man getting tortured brutally on like, isn't that strange? And I would say, yeah, I would say, well, that's a good point. That's a good point. I think we do fixate too much on violence, but I will say that I think it is a great symbol because it kind of shows that life's not fair. It also shows that, which is important, I think people need to understand that, like, good acts do not deliver great results in life. I think that actually the story of Jesus shows like the more good you do, the more bad things that are going to happen to you in this life, which is an important thing to understand, right? Or to realize or to accept. And I think a lot of people don't want to accept. But so I think that's why that symbol is very important. I think that was one of the messages of Jesus was like, look, man, if you want to do good in this world, prepare to face a lot of hardship. And you're not going to get rewarded in this world for doing good things like that. That's just not how it works here in this world. You do good things for other reasons, but you're not doing it to get good things happen to you in life. And I think like that idea, is important. Like, you have somebody who, the story of Jesus, he never did anything wrong ever in his life, but he he got executed. Like, how fair is that? Well, the point is life's not fair, right? And that's not like the point of life is not fairness. The point of doing good things in the world is not to get like happy results in this world, right? The point of doing good things is there's another reason why you should be doing good things, right? Or like being nice to people and kind to people, right? You can be nice and kind to people, and like really horrible things can happen to you, right? And that's something that you have to accept, right? That's kind of the nature of existence. And so that's what the cross means to me, right? And I think that's important to kind of accept that and I think a lot of people, it's very hard for people to accept that, right? And I think the cross is a great representation of that. So yeah, I think it's a very appropriate symbol. I mean, it's brutal, but it's pretty appropriate. I'm participating in the Socialist Democratic Party of Canada. Wow, DSA. Oh, wait a minute. Oh yeah, I guess that would be Socialist Democrat. Oh, okay, that's probably different. Here in United States, we have the Democratic Socialists of America. So that's like Bernie Sanders and I think AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I think they are part of that political party. But I think that's different, right? Than the Socialist Democratic Party of Canada. You got fired for being too introverted? Damn. A manager that I thought was a friend is missing. Oh, that's too bad. Okay, nice discussion. Can you contact the later? My poems will be published. Nice. The more good you do, the more you get rewarded, like Jesus' word. I guess, he would say, you're going to see good things in the afterlife. But in terms of like, living here in the material world, no, it doesn't work like that. Maybe in the afterlife. But I would argue like that's not the reason why you should be doing good things. Is not to be rewarded, right? And I guess I would get a lot of pushback from like modern day Christians, where it's thinking like, you're going to see the fruits of your labors when you like. That's not why you should be doing good work. Like you should be doing good works because you want to build. First of all, like if you want to get really religious, it's like doing good works is how you develop a personal relationship with God. It's called being godly. If you want to get like really religious, like that's how you become. That's how you develop a personal relationship with God, which is like kind of like one of the Christian aims is to develop a personal relationship with God. How do you do that? Some people say, "Oh, you just pray every day in isolation and you go to church." It's like, well, that's part of it, but that's not all. like a huge part of it, which Jesus taught, was to like you got to go out in the world and like be good to people and be compassionate to people, and like that's a way to be like God, to be godly. Right. So that's one way to do it. Another way is like by doing good with by people, you form relationships with people. And life ultimately is about the relationships you have with people, right? And that's really like why you should be doing good things, is because that's what life's about. It's the relationships we have with each other. It's not about like Jeremy brought up luxury. It's not about like Rolexes or Porsches or like big screen TV. Is about like good, healthy, progressive, awesome relationships with other people. Right? That's what's going to give you the most joy in life, right? That's why you should be doing good. It's not about like, well, if I do good, then when I die, there's going to be all this good shit that I'm going to get in heaven. Like, no, you're like thinking about it all wrong. And I would argue like. That's not Jesus was like not trying to say all that. I mean, he did talk positively about heaven and like that, but I think his life kind of showed like look, I'm basically living in adjunct poverty right now, even though I'm doing like really good stuff, right? And that's what's gonna happen, right? Let's see. I could, but I don't think it's worth it considering that I was on a probationary. Life isn't fair. Isn't that more that capitalism isn't fair? No. I mean, before capitalism existed, like life was not fair. Is life inherently not fair? Yep, it sure is. I feel like doing more good does benefit you with better sense of community. Like, understand, like capitalism is a relatively new concept in human history. Like, it's like capitalism is something that came out, in the Industrial Revolution, right? Which is like not most of human history, So like, yeah, I mean, capitalism definitely didn't exist during Jesus's time or Buddha's time or like, Muhammad's time or all the other like religious like prophets and seers, right? And yet like people were suffering and doing like, a lot of bad shit was happening to people for no apparent reason, right? That's life, man. That's just the reality of life. Cool. Is heaven real for you? Oh yeah, I believe in the afterlife. Yeah, I think I'm a believer in that. But I do think like the whole fixation on heaven, like we gotta like that needs to like we gotta put the brakes on that. Right? We need to focus on what we're doing here and now. Not yet. Okay, I got poems. Cool. Patriarchy. I feel like that life might not have inherently. Yeah, life could be more fair, even before like patriarchy. Maybe you have a baby and the baby just dies for for whatever reason. That's not fair. Right? or or you fall, have an accident, and you're paralyzed from the waist down or something. Things like that happen. And you might be like the nicest person in the world that could happen to you. Likewise, somebody could be a jerk and like have really good shit happen to them, and live just a nice life. Life is random like that. Of course, life could definitely be more fair if we didn't have all these oppressive systems. That's for sure. That's for sure. But that's why I don't like. But I am all about like crush the patriarchy for sure, right? But once the patriarchy is crushed, we're still gonna have to deal with stuff. There's still gonna be some problems that we're gonna have to deal with. A great fiction book that I covered on the channel was it's called A Psalm for the Wild Built. I covered that on the channel. That's like a utopian dystopia, or dystopian utopia. It's like I covered it on the channel. It's like capitalism has been solved. There's no more patriarchy. Like there's no more social economic oppression. Everything is like that's gone. But there's still this like philosophical suffering that's happening. Like people are still struggling to find meaning in life, despite the fact that there's no longer social economic oppression. So it was to deal with that. So I thought that was a great book because it gave you this thought experiment kind of like you're still gonna have to deal with like kind of the realities of life and kind of like wrestle with the unfairness that life gives, despite all these social economic oppressive systems not being there. That's fascinating. What is the essence of capitalism? Exploitation. That's the essence of capitalism. Exploitation. Oh, I'm getting it more now. Like accidents, stuff can happen to anyone despite the oppressive. Yeah. Life is too volatile. Life itself is capitalistic. That I disagree with. That I don't agree with. I think capitalism is an invention. Capital is an invention. What's the dystopic book called again? Oh, it's called A Psalm for the Wild Built. A Psalm for the Wild Built. I did a video about it. Let me type it. Great book, very highly critically acclaimed. There's a sequel to it too. That's very good. It's supposed to be a series, but I think the author was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to continue it," because I think she got kind of depressed with the current like political times, unfortunately. And I think the author's doing another book as well, another book series, and they're more focused on that. Okay, where were we here? Yeah, did that. Okay. Cozy punk, yeah. Yeah, it's like a feel-good book. It does have that. I think the genre is solar punk. It's like the far into the future, but like the world has went back to old technology, but in a futuristic. It's kind of like prehistoric times, but everybody has technology. It's interesting. Someone. Yeah. Okay, so let's finish off here. Let's see. They are trying to build better frameworks for understanding people and their socio-cultural worlds. People do things, religious ritual, religious violence, religious charity, because of what beliefs they hold. So I put religion is being defined to build a theoretical framework that explains human society. So that's why they're saying like the reason why religion is being defined is because they're trying to like understand human society better. So it's not even about like understanding religion, they're understanding human society. So again, it's like a theoretical orientation or like a bias, right? I think socialism comes before communism. Okay. Stepwise. You spark such great discussions. Cool, I try. And I, personally, I kind of disagree with the whole stepwise, kind of that Marxist-Leninist kind of thinking, like versus socialism. Then it's like communism, right? Or like the whole like you have to have capitalism. You have proto-socialism, then it evolves into mercantilism, and then it becomes like then it comes into capitalism, and then late stage capitalism, and then the revolution happens, and then socialism, and then communism. Is like, no, I think there's, I think there were like communist tribes way in prehistoric era before, socialist tribe. It's all just labels at the end of the day. It's you gotta not be so tied to these labels. It's a lot more fluid than that. The task of capturing and representing people's inner life was not feasible because beliefs do not directly mirror what people experience and cannot be directly relayed linguistically. And this is from Rodney Needham, another anthropologist, British. Belief is a modern, privatized Christian concept because it invokes the Protestant theology that individual belief is necessary for salvation. So now we're talking about religion as it relates to belief. Belief is not just practice, where they kind of got away with that with Protestantism and Martin Luther. I say by faith alone, not by it's all by faith alone, right? There's nothing you could do that could earn your way into heaven. All you got to do is believe, right? So there's this hyper fixation on belief, and so practice gets left out of the equation, right? So again, that's like a bias. Oh, I think I read that in... Oh, no, I read that correctly. Okay. I was like, wait a minute. The order is messed up. Man. I'm trying to see how much longer I got. The problem is I highlight too much stuff. All right, where are we at? Let's see. Trying to think. Should I just get through this? Yeah, let's do a little bit more. Do a little more. Oh, hello, Huda. What do you think is the source and perhaps the reasons you can think of behind interreligious conflicts? Oh, power struggle. So the tired and true, source of all human problems, obsession with power, and like who has the most power, and is vying for power. Like, I think that's the source. Unfortunately, we're so obsessed with power. Yeah. Okay, and now, which deprivileges other possibilities. People do not necessarily listen to their what am I saying here? On what analytical grounds can we rightly elevate belief is more essential to religion than ritual practice? Yep, we talked. Materiality, objects, built spaces, landscapes, forms of embodiment, or the authorizing processes that endow power and authority. So yeah, we just talked about that. How integral is belief to religion? All right, and then people who go to church but don't put much thought in their belief. Right, so that's the other thing. Like, there's people who believe, belief is this high thing, but then you got most people who go to church aren't even paying attention to the preacher, right? So that was like a counter. It's like, well, yeah, you say that, but then actually most people don't really even pay attention to what the preacher's saying. They're just like shaking their, and the church is more like a club or like a social club than it is like an actual spiritual place of worship. And then agricultural violence is an understated source of religious violence. There's always something. Agricultural, land grabs, which is the whole manifest destiny, colonialism, European colonialism. But even before Europe was power, right? You had other Eastern powers trying to take land from others, and then they use religion as a device to justify that. I think I want to get to the part where it talks about secularism. Because that's interesting. The secular should not be conceived as merely the opposite of religion, nor as a kind of absence or invisible force. Secularism, just like religion, is a product of social action that is actively maintained, negotiated, and contested. A live question for anthropologists of religion is this: what varieties of secularism have been produced, and what are their effects? Right? So, the secular, which is like non-religious, right? You shouldn't look at that as like the opposite of religion, right? Because there are many secularism kind of sometimes works in tandem with religion, right? It's interesting. A classic example of that here is America, right? We say, separation of church and state, but no, right? No, there's none of that here. Considering that people always lived off lands, religions were created and developed to fortify territories as God's gifts. Okay, I think I would check out your poetry, because now I'm curious, like, are you religious? Because it sounds like you're not, even though you say you're, which is, and you don't have to share if you. I'm just speculating here, because you're raised Catholic, but then you're critiquing religion, which I do that too. I critique religion a lot, but I say I'm religious. But that's interesting, and it just brings up some examples here in the text. Some like China. Developed like this concept of secularism, not because it was opposed to Buddhism or Taoism. They just wanted to use it more as moralities and philosophies, but not as religions, because they wanted the state power to be kind of like in charge. So their morals and philosophies were not religions. So that's a kind of secularism that uses religions as philosophies rather than actual religions. Right, so religions are included. It's just, there's this kind of distancing away from like the religious spiritual aspect and more just the moral philosophical part. And then you have a lot of Middle Eastern cultures that you call themselves secular because they're like, look, we got a lot of Hindus and we got a lot of Muslims here. and we need to get a solution to this because they're not getting along. So we're just going to call ourselves secular so that these two religions can kind of coexist. So it's not like an exclusion from religion. It's just a way to like say like, look, you know, our government is secular, meaning like y'all can do you, but you know, when it comes to government stuff, we're gonna just stick to government. And then there's even like countries like Turkey who consider themselves secular, but there's like religious people. Religion is like all over Turkey. Like it cites this example. It's just saying like it tries to actually have a true separation of religion and state. Now, how often are they successfully doing that? I don't know. I don't live in Turkey. I hear like they do it better than America does. So, as I have a few friends who come from Turkey, and they say like, yeah, we're able to separate a little bit more than America, but not all the way, right? So there's that. So just because you're secular doesn't mean you're opposite from religion, is what the text is saying. So it depends on the social political conditions that form religion rather than the beliefs of religion. Okay, I already said that. Interesting. What is God to you? To me? I don't know, man. Well, you know, I really vibe with Jesus. I'm a Jesus person. So, you know, I think Jesus is God. So, you know, however Jesus defines God, that's me. The whole God is love. I really do jive with that. And, you know, I'm also, you know, with the Octavia Butler, God is change, you know. And then I'm reading this kind of book now. Reading this Artist's Way with a group of people, and you know, very popular self-help book about how to get rid of your art block, which I don't have no art block, but it's fascinating. The book says that God is creativity, and that's cool. I like that. So God is like the creative force. Some say the definition of religion is to bind. So when you say you are a Christian, that's where you bind yourself to. What do you make of that? The practice of Christianity. Well, yeah, again, like I don't really fixate too heavily on definitions. So, you know, I think some people might be offended or like might be turned off by that. Like, what do you mean? I'm not bound to anything. You know, I'm not fixed to nothing, but whatever. Like if that means, if I say I'm Christian and that means like, oh, that means you're bound to this certain thing, like, okay, like that's fine to me. I'm bind to that's where you bind yourself to. Yeah, I would say I'm bound to the teachings of Jesus Christ. You know, I'm sure, like, of course I'm not like bound in the sense like, do I follow what he says completely? No, because I'm not like strong enough or not morally. I don't have that kind of moral strength. But yeah. So what do I make of that? Not much. Not much. You know, I just like doing good by people. God is the mind. Oh, hello, Craig. Or I don't know if I already said hi to you. I think that might be the first time. I see, Greg. God is the mind that reality reflects. Oh, okay. Good. Okay. That's nice. That's what God means to Craig. I think we're gonna conclude here. I think I did some more highlights, but I think I'm just saying the same stuff now. Yeah, I'm just repeating the same stuff. So I'll conclude here, and plus it's been a while. It's been 2 hours. Although, as you know, we we have gone 3.5 hours before, so that's the thing. But I'll stop here. Caught you live because we do it Sunday. I try to do Sundays, but it doesn't always work because I know people are more available on Sundays because Saturday is party time. But I'm sorry, that's the time I'm available. I've just got to put these pages back in their order. So you have been doing the lives for some books now. Yeah, this is just more like essays or excerpts of text. I'm actually like a buddy with a college professor, and they are letting me sit in on their class, and I'm basically taking the class without like being graded for it. And this is one of the texts. The class is Religion, Art, and Queer Theory. That's the name of the class. It's awesome. I'm like, hell yeah, I'll take that. I asked them, can I sit in on your class? And they're like, sure. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm going to be, live streams are going to be more about text that I'm just doing from the class I'm just sitting in on. Which college? It's called Rhodes College in Memphis, Tennessee. Yeah. Craig, have you been reading I Ching? So you have been doing like, okay, cool. Well, I think I will clock out unless anybody has any other questions or comments or concerns. Will you do another live next week? And I should, but let me see. It will be a Saturday for sure, though. Here, let me look at the schedule just in case. Wait a minute, how do I do that? Let's see here. Why do I not have anything on? Do I have nothing on Saturday? That's rare. My Saturday is like completely open. That is so rare. So yeah, I'll definitely be on Saturday. And I guess it'll be like the usual 7 o'clock. Maybe I'll make it 5 o'clock because maybe that might be good before people go out and party. So more people will be available. Let's see here. For a while, you were bi-weekly. Yeah, because I was busy doing all types of food, not bombs, man. Busy with the food, not bombs. Do you think religion is both peaceful and warlike? Well, I think human beings can be peaceful and they can be warlike. So they, because religion is a product of human beings, it does bring about peace and war. That's for sure. What do you use to keep track of your events? I use Google Calendar. That's what I use. Google Calendar. I know like Google is just mining your personal data. I get it, but it's convenient. I used to use paper. I still use the paper, but I got to use like a computerized thing because it's just very convenient. But I still use the paper for my weekly stuff. Let's see. I'm an idealist, a Christian idealist. Imagine that. Oh, okay, cool. All is welcome to the philosophy class. The vibe, are you, Professor? Oh, nice. It's a gift. Okay, cool. Okay, y'all just having conversations, which is great. No problem. That's why I like this channel. Philosophy isn't a threat, it's a gift. Yeah. Yeah. People are like, oh no, philosophy. That's horrible. No, it's a great thing. It's how we save the world. Philosophy is what we need to make the world a better place. As I always preach that. But we gotta take philosophy out of this, ivory tower, like abstract realm, and into like the practical, and apply it to like the actual issues facing humanity, like climate change and social injustice, social inequity, and racism, and like patriarchy and homophobia and all this stuff. We need to bring philosophy in that realm, whereas like a lot of people in philosophy are like, no, don't taint the philosophical schools with that wokeness. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, no, that's what is needed. Oh, for sure that is. God is jealous. That's what the Bible says. Oh, I haven't heard that take. Why do you say that, Jeremy? Yeah, Jeremy said God is jealous. Why do you say that? Is that the question? Because the Bible literally quotes God himself says, "I'm a jealous God." Like he calls himself that in the Bible. You will not have no other idols before me. And that's why idolatry, IDOL, not the adultery, idolatry as well. Too many people try to wield philosophy like a knife, like they're using it as a weapon, when it's just thinking about stuff. Yeah, but and then thinking about stuff in a very constructive, progressive, yeah, that's to me like not even critical. Critical, yes, but like constructive and progressive way, right? That's what we need, right? We don't need like thinking that's destructive and just like tears shit down and just kind of goes nowhere. Which is also a lot of thinking. It just goes nowhere, and a lot of thinking is just done to make yourself feel. It's like egotistical thinking, like narcissistic. That's a lot of thinking today, but we need more like thinking that actually helps the world rather than just either maintains it in the way that it is or like brings it downward or backwards. Your president just slapped 25% tariffs on Canada. I know, right? I mean, he said he was going to do that. Yeah, he definitely said he was going to put those tariffs. Like he said, that was one of his promises. One thing about our president is like he does what he says he's going to do. Now, sometimes like our separation of powers will step in and be like, well, you can't do that, Mr. President. But he'll sure in hell try. But the tariffs were definitely something he said he was going to do, and he did it. Yeah. Now, of course, like, do I agree with it? No. Like, do I think he's an idiot and a moron and like, an evil person? Yes. But here we are. I didn't vote. I voted for Kamala. I voted for Kamala Harris. So, it wasn't me. Because Nadia, you seek. Philosophy king for president. I mean, that would definitely be better than the current president. For sure. I haven't read the Bible. Well, that's fine. Most people haven't. I didn't know God was jealous. Yeah, he calls himself that. I'm a jealous God. even the concept of Mother Nature is of cruelty. Yeah, a lot of people say that. Although, I mean, it just depends on how you think about it. My favorite book ever of all time, Braiding Sweetgrass, the author refers to the earth as Mother Nature, but she does it in a way that's, healthy and progressive and constructive and like anti-patriarchal. Like you can definitely use the term Mother Nature in a way that pushes the patriarchy. But I think you can also use it in a way that doesn't, which what she does. So it depends. I think that's in the book of Job. All the pieces. I think it's in other books too. What you talk about the jealous thing? Yeah, I think that's in several books. Yeah, I know it's in the book of Exodus for sure, right? With the Ten Commandments, right? I don't know if you think of God as jealous. That is too much of a human trait. No. Yeah, I mean, the Bible is problematic for sure. I'm definitely one of those people who doesn't, I'm not like a literalist. I don't read the Bible in the sense in that is literal, like for a lot, especially the Old Testament. But you gotta think of it through. You're spiritual, but not to a certain God. How Mother Nature is nice with earthquakes, hurricanes, and tsunamis. Well, my mama definitely punished me too. Like my mama wasn't always nice to me either, but sometimes I deserved it. Not saying that earthquakes and hurricanes are things that people deserve. I'm just saying mothers can definitely be cruel too. And my mama was great. I was raised by a great mama, but she definitely put down the punishment when it was at times. So, a mother isn't necessarily nice all the time, to say. Nature is what sustains all life on Earth. It's beautiful. She's emotional, so on that. Sorry. Yeah, it's that too. Climate change is definitely doing that. Although, now we're really fucked because we have an entire administration, United States, that just doesn't even believe in that. So it's like, yeah, we're fucked. Oh well. I'm still doing my food out bombs. I got this book. I don't have the cover because I got it used. I was told this is a really good book. Women who run with wolves. But I hear it's for I'm not the target audience for this book. I hear this book is for women. It's not for men. But it's like, it brings up counter myths throughout history. Myths throughout history that counter like the notions of womanhood we have today. We have this idea of women and we think this idea of woman as nurturer and submissive and the backbone of man is like this. It's like a historical thing, but I hear like this book kind of counters that, and it says like, well, there's actually all different types of interpretations of women throughout history, and you can see it through these various myths. But I hear like this book, people read this book, and it's like women will read it and they'll be like, yes, girl power. But I'll check it out. But because I'm interested in that. I got it like for $2 somewhere at like a yard sale or something. Where do you see the U.S. in 10 years, Neil? I mean, that's like one of those crystal ball questions. Like there's no way I can answer that question. Like, I would say that question is impossible to answer. Honestly, like the way the world is going is like, who knows? Who fucking knows? Like I could give you, I don't think I can't give you a prediction of how the U.S. will be. Who knows, man? It's hard to tell. I don't know. I honestly can honestly tell you I cannot answer that because I have no idea. I have no idea. All I know is I'm just gonna keep doing me. Yeah. As much as you voted for Kamala, do you agree that her campaign was ridiculous? Yeah, I mean it wasn't ridiculous. It was just it just wasn't. I think I agree with a lot of what there's some political analysts who are saying like, well, what we know is the what happened with the voting was a lot of people, like a lot of young people, decided to just abstain from voting. They just was like, and that put Trump over the edge. They're like, I'm not voting because both of these options suck, so I'm not voting. And so that put Trump over the edge. And also, like the other thing is like a lot of white women. There was this idea that white educated women, or like white women with college degrees, were going to vote for Harris, but they didn't. A lot of them actually voted for Trump. And also, you got the white women who don't have degrees, who just they voted for Trump too. So it was what gave Trump the advantage was white women and young people who decided just not to vote, right? And there's some political analysis that says, what would have helped Kamala Harris is if she was more radical. Like the public needed a more polar opposite to Trump, right? So they needed she should have abstained. She should have said we need to stop the war in Gaza. She should have been more the fact that she was had so much background in policing. Like she was district attorney and attorney general of California, district attorney of San Francisco. That was like, oh, okay, you're just a cop. So so she was like, she was just establishment, and political analysis was that I kind of agree with. Like she should have pushed. She should have done a Bernie Sanders style thing. They said a lot of people are saying like if Bernie Sanders ran at the same thing again, like he would have won, right? Because people were kind of wanting that polar opposite extreme. Because Trump has the right, the extreme right, and we needed like an extreme left person too. That's what people were, and we didn't have that, so that's why people were like, I'm just not gonna. Now, for me, it's like, well, I think that's foolish. I don't think they're the same. I think they're like not even close. Actually, I know like Harris definitely has problems, but it's like, Trump is just like, that's like. You're looking at a ditch and you're looking at the Grand Canyon, right? It's like, I'm definitely like a lesser of two evils type of, and when I say lesser, like you have like a little evil and then you have like huge evil, I mean, it's not even like a contest, right? But that's where my mind was, but yeah, it is what it is. As much as Republicans are bluntly dangerous, the Democrats are virtue signaling gaslighters. I think there's just this notion. Yeah, so there's that. But I think there's just this notion that Democrats are kind of spineless and they kind of like deep in the pockets of corporations and they don't care about like the American people. I think like that's what's going on here in the United States. Like that's how people feel. Like people feel like, yeah, the Democrats are just cowards who are just like, um, and I don't think it's so much of that. Like people think like Democrats are virtue signaling. They just think like, well, they're just doing that because that's just they just think like if they do that they'll get votes because they don't really care. They just want they just want power. That's they don't care. So the virtual signaling and gaslighting is like it's empty. It has no substance to it. It's just they just want power, right? Why couldn't Kamala answer the questions directly about her vice presidency? Oh, because she's just playing like old school politics. But people are tired of that. People are just tired of it. It's too bad. Free Palestine, yeah, true that. What are your predictions? She doesn't have a radical bone in her body. It's true. Making a lot of Canadian Trump supporters shut up in our country. Yeah, it's it's like, well, like a lot of people that support Trump, we don't. A lot of Americans don't like that either because it's like, dude, like you're killing our business, right? So you got your people who are like not hardcore Trump people who voted for Trump that are like, like maybe I should, but it's like, dude, he was already like, so a lot of it's just this idiocy that's happening here in the United States where, we kind of at fault too, right? Because it's like he's not doing anything he didn't say he was going to do. So he is, what's going to happen is a lot of people who are backing Trump are going to be like, oh shit, I fucked up. But it's too late now. But then you also have these people who are just like basically in a Trump cult. And, they're just going to go down with the ship. And like Trump is like a god to them. There's a lot of people like that here, which is like, a crazy phenomenon. But it's a thing that's happening. Okay. I think of our Canadian, like most of our countrymen will vote for Pierre. Who will you vote for? For me, my riding is Liberal, but it wouldn't be nice if we switched. Okay, yeah, I don't know much about Canadian politics. But yeah, I'm sure y'all are crazy. But, it sucks because, the American government affects your government greatly, or your country greatly, which is too bad. Like I said, like, I don't know if Kamala Harris was president, you wouldn't be seeing 25% tariffs. I'm just saying. Like, call her a gaslighter all you want, and like call her virtue signaling all you want. You wouldn't be seeing this 25% tariff on Canada. You wouldn't be seeing that, right? So I don't know. Sometimes you just gotta like, you gotta like think about. You gotta think deeply about shit. That's where philosophy comes in. It's like you can't just vote off emotion. You gotta like think things through. For my riding Liberal, Singh is what I would vote for, even though I think he is a sellout. I generally vote for my representative. I have a communist running in my riding. Voting is like, it's a tool. It's like a tool in your arsenal, right? You don't vote for like the perfect candidate. You just use it as a way to get closer to where you want to go, right? A vote doesn't like get you where you want to go. It just gets you closer to where you want to go, right? It's just one of the tools we have in our civics belt, right? And that's what people need to understand. But nobody understands civics anymore and that's mostly due to our education system is so fucked up, right? Yeah, you're not voting for like somebody remotely. You vote for the person that's closest to what you want, right? And then you push harder. Like there are other ways to influence government besides voting, but this whole like I'm out, like I check out, and it's like okay, and now we're in this shit where like the economy's gonna be fucked up, right? Because it's Mexico, Canada, and China, has 25% tariffs. And of course, like all the countries are retaliating with their own tariffs. It's just a shit show, and just people are using their emotion. Nobody gives a fuck about like what's actually, good. For like morality is just out the window. Nobody cares about that anymore, except for you and me. It's just crazy. What are your thoughts on voting independent? I have a communist running in my riding. What your thoughts are? Just vote for who you want to vote for. I don't know how that works. And I mean, Canadian politics they're very different. Like, if you vote for like an independent here in the United States, you're just basically throwing your vote away. So it depends, but maybe in Canada it's not like that. So I don't know. What do you think about DEI being gutted? I think it's stupid, and I think it's dumb, and I think it's like highly idiotic, and it just shows that people are just kind of stupid. I don't know. Like, of all things to target, that is like, but it also shows that America is racist. It's always been racist, and we're just seeing that back in business, racism in full effect, and like it's just a scapegoat people are using. The government, politicians are using to blame, just like they blame like transgender people, or they blame wokeness or whatever. There's always some red herring or whatever that they use. Like, oh, now it's DEI. It's like, no, the problem is like, oil companies that are just destroying the environment. That's the issue. But you just want to blame everything on DEI. Okay, whatever. Tariffs might be good in some ways for Canada. We are now focused on self-sustainability and buying local. Well, I hope that works out. I hope that's good. I think there would have been like a better way to do that, but maybe that's what we need. Maybe we need like a kick in the ass to get us. The problem is a lot of people are going to die, but oh well, sometimes that's what's needed. Life's not fair, remember? Do you think Trump would win again, or did you have no expectations? Oh, I thought it was going to be a flip of the coin. I thought it was 50%. That's what I was like. That's what I was saying. I was like, it's a coin toss. It's literally a coin toss. Yep. And we got it. Was I super surprised? Not really, but still hurt. Still hurt. Sometimes the truth hurts. But yeah, it was essentially a coin toss. I'm surprised, like, all the other, like, it seems like other countries are more disturbed by it than Americans were. Because I got all these messages from people from other countries. I'm like, whoa, okay. I mean, I get it. Like, y'all gonna feel the pain too. This idiot's decision making. But, growing up in this country, you tend to realize, like, yep, this is America. Yeah, that's crazy. Like, people from other countries have felt like depressed. Some of my YouTube buddies made videos of like people from Australia. It's like, oh, I'm so depressed. People from Britain, they're like, oh, I'm so depressed. I'm like, damn, you're more depressed than like people I know here. I mean, don't get me wrong, we're upset too. But I guess because we lived through it. That's crazy. U.S. politics, dominates the Canadian news. That's crazy. I guess, that's one thing about that guy. He takes, I mean, he's a reality TV star. Like, that's what he's, that's his expertise, is to dominate TV airwaves. Again, Democrats refuse to take accountability for inflation, knowing that the government printed so much money to cause higher prices during the last 4 years. Yeah, that's not the reason why inflation happened. Yeah, Democrats did not cause inflation to happen. Like, inflation is a very complicated thing. That no single party caused inflation to arise. I mean, I'm not like a Democrat, and I'm not like trying to defend Democrats or anything like that. But inflation occurred for many different reasons. Not, a lot of them not political, right? A lot of it had to do with just business practice. Corporations caused inflation, right? Definitely not the printing of money. That definitely did not cause inflation. You might need to. You might want to think that a little. Rethink that one. Do you know how much profits were generated during the pandemic? Yeah, a lot of profit was generated during the pandemic, but that had more to do. That didn't have anything to do with like who was in office. For example, like I work for FedEx, right? I work for FedEx. Like made record profit during the pandemic. Why? Because everybody was buying shit online, right? Because everybody was at home, right? They couldn't get out. Like I mean, that had little to do with who was in office. That was just like people were at home, so they're just buying shit. And that's why they made record profit. A lot of like online businesses made tons of money hand over fist. FedEx is one of them. And then after the pandemic, what happened? People just was like, no, I want to go out, right? And people stopped shipping, and then FedEx started losing money because they're like, oh shit, the good times are not rolling anymore. I mean, that had nothing to do with who was in office. That just was just the environment. It's like people were they were forced to stay at home for like a year and a half, and they're like, I gotta get the fuck out, so I'm gonna spend all my money on trips and vacations and going out and doing experiences outside, and they spent less money on like buying goods. And so that's what happened, and so like prices were affected by that. And there was all other reasons as well, but it definitely wasn't because of the printing of money. And the Democrats really had little to do with it. Inflation actually has very little to do with who's in, the president, or like even like the executive branch. It has a lot more to do with like corporations activity, and maybe Congress or the legislature has some influence on that, but it's mostly just like the state of society, what's going on, like in terms of like world events like wars and like the pandemic and like natural disaster. Well, I guess not natural, right? Like disasters that happen, and and also business practices, right, from corporations. They're mostly what determine like inflation and like the price of goods and services and that kind of stuff, right? And that's the thing like a lot of people don't understand, and it's just crazy. We waste so much time debating about that, and there's like people who are like, oh my god, the price of eggs. So when Trump was president, the price is like Trump he doesn't have anything to do with the price of eggs, right? And then it's on the issue now. It's like, oh, Trump's gonna pass tariffs. That's gonna no. It's like that's just gonna make the world go nuts. Is what's gonna happen. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. Like people don't have. There's just people's conception of reality is just so. It's so off. It's just like, and that's why we're in the mess that we're in now. Hello, Sebastian. Have you ever struggled with learning? It seems like workaholism is a religion in the U.S. because of secularism. Our new faith is goods and tech. Have I ever struggled with learning? No. It seems like workaholism is religion in the U.S. Because of no, it's not because of secularism. It's because of capitalism. That's why. That's why workaholism is religion. Yeah, workaholism is a religion, and the name of the religion is capitalism, right? It's definitely, I would argue, not secular. I would argue like religion pushes workaholism because we have this idea that God loves hard workers, right? Our new faith is good. Well, that's true. Like we do believe in like the power of the marketplace, and that's become a religion. Why do people waste so much of their time and energy lashing out on imaginary enemies like egg price hiking? I don't know, man. Yeah, these unicorns. Yeah, I don't know what's up with people. It's just we're just a poorly educated society. I think because education in America at least is shit. Public education is not funded at all, not resourced, and then higher education is like what do you call it? So expensive that nobody can afford to attend universities and colleges. So yeah, we just need a massive, a rehauling of our education system. But of course, that's by design. People, if a less educated populace is a more easily controlled one, right? So yeah, people will debate about the price of gas and eggs, and it's easy to control these people. Even the helicopter jet crash, everybody is just using a tragedy to get a little political points. Yeah, like Trump saying like, oh, the crash, the plane crash had to do with DEI. Like, what are you, huh? And then people buy into it, like, what? What are you, huh? Like, but this is the world we live in. That's why I always push for philosophy. It's like, we got to get more critical in our thinking. That's the first step. Do texts ever confuse you? Sometimes I don't understand concepts. Oh yeah, I just do a lot of rereading. I reread a lot of texts. There's nothing wrong with rereading. Some people, we live in a world where people want to, in this like Goodreads, this world of Goodreads where like the more books you read, the better you are. It's like, the amount of books you read, that's beside the point. It's like what is the information you're getting from the books, right? That's what's important. And if you have to like spend some time reading more slowly and like more deeply, then you should do it. But yeah, I get confused by books, but I just like, all right, let me take a step back and reread this. Okay, I'm not gonna. That's why I don't produce videos super fast, because it takes me a while to figure it out. Let's see. Education is undercut by TikTok. Anyways, now that the shit has affected my own attention span, yeah, I tried TikTok and I could not. I just couldn't. It was just like I couldn't deal with it. I'm just like, wow. It's just the information was just going too fast. Maybe because I'm old. I'm an old guy. But there's people, I do have friends that are a little older than me, who love TikTok, which is, whatever. But yeah, TikTok has its problems. But, there's some good in TikTok. I'm not going to bash it, but I couldn't deal with it. I tried, and I'm just like, the information it was so annoying to me because just that rapid fire information. It felt like I was just changing people who grew up with those old school TVs, you have remote control, you're just changing the channel constantly. I just couldn't. It just was like, I can't deal with this. This is annoying the shit out of me. It's like watching commercials. It's like watching a commercial break that just never ends. That's what it's like. That's what it was like to me. I could not deal with it. But some people, that floats their boat. It seems both America and Canadians don't read for nothing. At least we do. I mean, it depends. Like, one of the companies that blew up was like Barnes and Noble. Like, a lot of booksellers were selling. I mean, books sell off the charts nowadays, right? And books are very expensive too. So people read. It's just like, yeah, it's just like people are not like, just education isn't there anymore. And that's not just the fault of people, that's also the fault of our social economic systems and the fact that education is like not focused on in our society. People read like they read like Fourth Wing and shit like that. Like A Court of Thorns and Roses or whatever the fuck that. They read that romantasy, which you could do. I understand things are fun. Hey, I play video games, so I'm not like pretending I don't do silly shit too for fun. You should have fun doing in your life and partake in things you enjoy, but yeah, I just got to say, like, yeah, we do. There's a large amount of people who do read. It's just reading alone is not like giving you information. Just because you read doesn't mean you're like well educated or something like that. And then also, like, a lot of well educated people are not that smart either, right? Like, a lot of people that have degrees are like, they're just as dumb as everybody else. Case in point, Jordan Peterson, or like, who's a Canadian. But there's a lot of people like that. Well, I have all these credentials. Yeah, but you're dumb as a doorknob. But anyway. Okay, looks like somebody's gone off to bed. 9:30 p.m. here. Damn. Okay, so you're in the East Coast. I didn't know that. All right. Good night. So I should do 5 o'clock for you. Should know that. Let's see. Text confuses me all the time. Thoughts on Cornel West? He's cool. Yeah, he's cool. I should I should cover him more. I like Cornel West. Some people don't like him. Some people think he's overrated. I think he's pretty cool. I think he's, I don't think he's overrated. I think he's, some people put him in the same category as, Zizek. That's, let me look him up so I could, oh, okay. Yeah. Zizek. Yeah. That's probably not how to pronounce it. But that other very famous Slovenian philosopher who was like really big, they put him in the same category. He's cool too, but I think he's kind of fallen off in terms of like, he just says a lot of random shit now. But his early stuff is good. So, but I think Cornel West is a little better than him because he still says, his philosophy is still like, he's not all over the place. But some people don't agree with that. Some people think he is, but I think he's cool. Will you be covering more Kant? Yeah, I think I should read The Critique of Judgment, I think. I haven't covered that yet. Kant, Critique of Judgment. Yeah, I haven't covered that one yet. So I'll be doing that eventually. See you next time, Neil. Okay, bye everyone. See you next time. Thanks for chatting. Okay, looks like people are bouncing. So if there's no other questions, I'll be saying goodbye too. Again, we went way over time, but we're just hanging out. These are supposed to be 1 hour, but it's all good. It's all good. See y'all later. Should be back. I'm gonna try for Saturday, 5 p.m. Central Time, but we'll see if that happens. I have one question. Who's your favorite philosopher? Oh, that would be Henry David Thoreau. That is my favorite philosopher. He's cool. He's one of the transcendentalists. One of my favorite philosophy books is Walden, which is definitely like accurate. I think that's the first video I ever put out on this channel 11 years ago. Yeah, he's cool. Yeah, I think that was my first video, was about Walden. Still love that book. I read that book at least once a year. Still, I like it. He also wrote Civil Disobedience, which is the basis for a lot of nonviolent resistance. Both Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Based their nonviolent resistance off of civil disobedience, was by Thoreau. Nah. That book was written. Civil Disobedience was an essay written by Henry David Thoreau. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's another video I put out on this channel too. Check it out. But yeah, Dr. King definitely modeled a lot of his nonviolent actions, protests, off of civil disobedience. He quotes it a lot. Definitely, so you might think like he wrote it because he quotes it so much. But yeah, that's a great essay. Okay, guys. Guys, gals, non-binary peeps. I'll see you later. Peace out. Bye-bye.